Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi starting on page 219. Chapter 20. We do not visit Kashmir. Father, I want to invite Master and 4 friends to accompany me to the Himalayan foothills during my summer vacation. May I have 6 railway passes to Kashmir and enough money to cover our travel expenses? As I had expected, Father laughed heartily. This is the 3rd time you have given me the same cock and bull story. Didn't you make a similar request last summer and the year before that? At the last moment, Sri Yukteswar refuses to go? It is true, Father. I don't know why my guru will not give me his definite word about Kashmir. But if I tell him that I have already secured the passes from you, somehow I think that this time he will consent to make the journey. Father was unconvinced at the moment, but the following day, after some good-humored jibs, he handed me 6 passes and a roll of 10-rupee bills. I hardly think your theoretical trip needs such practical props, he remarked, but here they are. That afternoon I exhibited my booty to Sri Yukteswar. Though he smiled at my enthusiasm, his words were non-committal. I would like to go. We shall see. He made no comment when I asked his little hermitage disciple Kanani to accompany us. I also invited 3 other friends, Rajendra Nath Mitra, Jatin Audi, and 1 other boy. Our date of departure was set for the following Monday. On Saturday and Sunday I stayed in Calcutta where marriage rites for a cousin were being celebrated at my family home. I arrived in Surampur with my luggage early Monday morning. Rajendra met me at the hermitage door. Master is out walking. He has refused to go. I was equally grieved and obdurate. I will not give Father a 3rd chance to ridicule my chimerical plans for Kashmir. The rest of us should go. Rajendra agreed. I left the ashram to find a servant. Kanani, I knew, would not make the trip without Master, and someone was needed to look after the luggage. I bethought myself of Bihari, almost a servant in my previously a servant in my family home, who was now employed by a Surampur schoolmaster. As I walked along briskly, I met my guru in front of the Christian church near the Surampur courthouse. Where are you going? Sri Yukteswar's face was unsmiling. Sir, I hear that you and Connie will not take the trip we have been planning. I am seeking Bihari. You will recall that last year he was so desirous of seeing Kashmir that he even offered to serve without pay. Remember, nevertheless, I don't think Bihari will be willing to go. I don't think Bihari will be willing to go. I was exasperated. He is just eagerly waiting for this opportunity. My guru silently resumed his walk. I soon reached the schoolmaster's house. Bihari in the courtyard greeted me with a friendly warmth that abruptly vanished as soon as I mentioned Kashmir. With a murmured word of apology, the servant left me and entered his employer's house. I waited half an hour, nervously assuring myself that Bihari's delay was being caused by preparations for his trip. Finally, I knocked at the front door. Bihari left by the back stairs about 30 minutes ago, a man informed me. A slight smile hovered about his lips. I departed sadly, wondering whether my invitation had been too coercive or whether Master's unseen influence were at work. Passing the Christian church again, I saw my guru walking slowly towards me. Without waiting to hear my report, he exclaimed, "So Bihari would not go. Now what are your plans?" I felt like a recalcitrant child who is determined to defy his masterful father. Sir, I am going to ask my uncle to lend me his servant Lal Dahari. "See your uncle if you want to," Sri Yukteswar replied with a chuckle, "but I hardly think you will enjoy the visit." Apprehensive but rebellious, I left my guru and entered Srimapur courthouse. My paternal uncle, Sarada Ghosh, a government attorney, welcomed me affectionately. "I am leaving today with some friends for Kashmir," I told him. "For years I've been looking forward to this Himalayan trip." "I am happy for you, Mukunda. Is there anything I can do to make your journey more comfortable?" These words gave me a lift of encouragement. "Dear uncle," I said, could you possibly spare me your servant Lal Dari?" My simple request had the effect of an earthquake. My uncle jumped up so violently that his chair overturned. The papers on the desk flew in every direction. His pipe, a long coconut-stemmed hubble-bubble, fell on the floor with a great clatter. "You selfish young man," he shouted, quivering with wrath. "What a preposterous idea! Who will look after me if you take my servant on one of your pleasure jaunts?" I concealed my surprise, reflecting that my amiable uncle's sudden change of front was only one more enigma in a day fully devoted to incomprehensibility. My retreat from the courthouse was more alacritious than dignified. I returned to the hermitage where my friends were expectantly gathered. A conviction was growing in me that some sufficient, if exceedingly recondite, motive was behind Master's attitude. Remorse seized me for having tried to thwart my guru's will. "Mukunda, wouldn't you like to stay a little longer with me?" Sri Yukteswar inquired. "Rajendra and the others may go ahead now and wait for you in Calcutta. There will be plenty of time to catch the last evening train leaving Calcutta for Kashmir." "Sir, I don't care to go without you," I said mournfully. My friends paid not the slightest attention to my remark. They summoned a hackney carriage and departed with all the luggage. Kanaya and I sat quietly at our guru's feet. After a half hour of silence, Master rose and walked towards the second-floor dining balcony. "Connie, please serve Mukunda's food. His train leaves soon." Getting up from my blanket seat, I staggered suddenly with nausea and a ghastly churning sensation in my stomach. The stabbing pain was so intense that I felt I had been abruptly hurled into some violent hell. Groping blindly towards my guru, I collapsed before him, exhibiting all symptoms of dread Asiatic cholera. Sri Yukteswar and Connie carried me to the sitting room. I cried in agony, "Master, I surrender my life to you, for I believe it was indeed fast ebbing from the shores of my body." Sri Yukteswar put my head on his lap, stroking my forehead with angelic tenderness. "You see now what would have happened if you were at the station with your friends," he said. "I had to look after you in this strange way because you chose to doubt my judgment about taking the trip at this particular time." I understood at last. My great master, as great masters seldom see fit to display their powers openly, a casual observer of the day's events would have considered them quite natural. My guru's intervention had been too subtle to be detected. He had inconspicuously worked his will through Bihari and my uncle and Rajendra and the others. Probably every one but me had thought the situations logical and normal. Sri Yukteswar never failed to observe his social obligations. He instructed Connie to summon a physician and to notify my uncle. "Master," I protested, "only you can heal me. I am too far gone for a doctor." "Child, you are protected by the divine mercy. Don't worry about the doctor. He will not find you in this state. You are already healed." With my guru's words, the excruciating suffering left me. I sat up feebly. A doctor soon arrived and examined me carefully. "You appear to have passed through the worst," he said. "I will take some specimens with me for laboratory tests." The following morning the physician arrived hurriedly. I was sitting up in good spirits. "Well, well, here you are, smiling and chatting as though you had no close call with death." He patted my hand gently. "I hardly expected to find you alive after I had discovered from the specimens that your disease was Asiatic cholera. You are fortunate, young man, to have a guru with divine healing powers. I am convinced of it." I agreed wholeheartedly. As the doctor was preparing to leave, Rajendra and Audie appeared at the door. The resentment in their faces changed into sympathy as they glanced at the physician and then at my somewhat wan countenance. "We are angry when you didn't turn up as agreed at the Calcutta train. You have been sick?" "Yes, I could not help laughing as my friends placed the luggage in the same corner it had occupied yesterday." I paraphrased. "There was a ship that sailed for Spain. Before it arrived, it was back again." Master entered the room. I permitted myself a convalescent's liberty and clapped his hand lovingly. "Guruji," I said, "from my 12th year on, I have made several unsuccessful attempts to reach the Himalayas. I am finally convinced that without your blessing, the goddess Parvati will not receive me." And here is a picture of the Lord as Shiva, king of the yogis. Chapter 21. We visit Kashmir. "You are strong enough to travel. I will accompany you to Kashmir." Sri Yutaswar informed me 2 days after my miraculous recovery from Asiatic cholera. That evening our party of 6 entrained for the north. Our first leisurely stop was Simla, a queenly city resting on the throne of the Himalayan hills. We strolled over the steep streets, admiring the magnificent views. English strawberries for sale crowd an old woman squatting in a picturesque open marketplace. Master was curious about the strange little red fruits. He bought a large basket of them and offered them to Kanani and me, who were nearby. I tasted one berry, but spat it hastily on the ground. "Sir, what a sour fruit! I could never like strawberries." The Guru laughed. "Oh, you will like them. In America, at a dinner there, your hostess will serve them with sugar and cream. After she has mashed the berries with a fork, you will taste them and say, 'What delicious strawberries.' Then you will remember this day in Simla." Sri Yutaswar's forecast vanished from my mind, but reappeared there many days later, shortly after my arrival in America. Reappeared there many years later, shortly after my arrival in America. I was a dinner guest at the home of Mrs. Alice T. Hazy, Sister Yogmata, in West Somerville, Massachusetts. When a dessert of strawberries was put on the table, my hostess picked up a fork and mashed my berries, adding cream and sugar. "The fruit is rather tart. I think you will like it fixed this way," she remarked. I took a mouthful. "What delicious strawberries!" I exclaimed. At once my Guru's prediction in Simla emerged from the fathomless cave of memory. I was awestruck to realize that long ago his God-tuned mind had detected the program of karmatic events wandering in the ether of futurity. Our party soon left Simla and entrained for Rawalpindi. There we hired a large closed-top landau drawn by 2 horses for a 7-day trip to Srinagar, capital of Kashmir. The second day of our northbound journey brought into view the true Himalayan vastness. As the iron wheels of our carriage creaked along the hot stony roads. We were enraptured with the changing vistas of mountainous grandeur. "Sir," Audie said to Master, "I am greatly enjoying these glorious scenes in your holy company." I felt a throb of pleasure at Audie's appreciation, for I was acting as host on this trip. Siri Yutswar caught my thought. He turned to me and whispered, "Don't flatter yourself. Audie is not nearly as entranced with the scenery as he is with the prospect of leaving us long enough to have a cigarette." I was shocked. "Sir," I said in an undertone, "please do not break our harmony by these unpleasant words. I can hardly believe Audie is hankering for a smoke." I looked apprehensively at my unusually irrepressible guru. "Very well then, I won't say anything to Audie," Master chuckled, "but you will soon see when the Lada halts that he is quick to seize his opportunity." The carriage arrived at a small caravanserai. As our horses were led to be watered, Audie inquired, "Sir, do you mind if I ride a while with the driver? I would like to get a little outside air." Siri Yutswar gave permission, but remarked to me, "He wants fresh smoke, not fresh air." The Lada resumed its noisy progress over the dusty roads. Master's eyes were twinkling. He instructed me, "Crane up your neck through the carriage door and see what Audie is doing with the air." I obeyed, and was startled to observe Audie in the act of exhaling rings of cigarette smoke. My glance towards Siri Yutswar was apologetic. "You are right as always, sir. Audie is enjoying a puff along with the panorama." I surmised that my friend had received a gift from the cab driver. I knew that Audie had not carried any cigarettes from Calcutta. We continued on the labyrinthine way, delighting in views of rivers, valleys, precipitous crags, and multitudinous mountain tiers. Each night we stopped at a rustic inn and cooked our food. Siri Yutswar took special care of my diet, insisting that I have lime juice at all meals. I was still weak, but daily improving though the rattling carriage had been strictly designed for discomfort. Joyous anticipations filled our hearts as we neared central Kashmir, paradise land of lotus lakes, floating gardens, gaily canopied houseboats, and many-bridged Jhelum River, and flower-strewn pastures, all encircled by the Himalayas. Our approach to Srinagar was through an avenue of tall, welcoming trees. We engaged rooms at a double-storied inn overlooking the noble hills. No running water was available. We drew our supply from a nearby well. The summer weather was ideal, warm days and slightly cold nights. We made a pilgrimage to an ancient Srinagar temple dedicated to Swami Shankara. As I gazed upon the mountain peak hermitage, behold, against the sky, I fell into an ecstatic trance. A vision appeared of a hilltop mansion in a distant land. The lofty Shankara temple in Srinagar became transformed into the edifice where years later I established Self-Realization Fellowship headquarters in America. When I first visited Los Angeles and saw the large building on the crest of Mount Washington, I recognized it at once from my long past visions in Kashmir and elsewhere. This is a picture of the international headquarters of Self-Realization Fellowship. A few days in Srinagar, then on to Gualmarg. Parentheses, mountain paths with flowers. And there's some more photographs here. This is Sri Rajakarsi Jan Akan Sada. And this is Sri Dayamata. "8,500 feet high. There I was, my first ride on a large horse. Rajendra mounted a small trotter, one whose heart was fired by ambition for speed. We ventured onto a very steep Kahilamangar. The path led through a dense forest abounding in tree mushrooms, where the mist-shrouded trails were often precarious. But Rajendra's little animal never permitted my oversized steed a moment's rest, even at the most perilous turns. On, untiringly came Rajendra's horse, oblivious to all but the joy of competition. Our strenuous race was rewarded by a breathtaking view. For the first time in this life, I gazed in all directions at the sublime snow-capped Himalayas, lying tier upon tier like silhouettes of huge polar bears. My eyes feasted exultingly on endless reaches of icy mountains, again sunny blue skies. I rolled merrily with my young companions, all wearing overcoats, on the sparkling white slopes. On our downward trip we saw afar a vast carpet of yellow flowers, wholly transfiguring the bleak hills. Our next excursions were to the famous pleasure gardens of Emperor Jehangiri of Shalimar and Nasihat Banga. The ancient palace of Nizhat Bagh is built directly over a natural waterfall. Rushing down from the mountains, the torrent has been regulated through ingenious contrivances to flow over colorful terraces and to gush into the fountains amidst the dazzling flower beds. The stream also enters several of the palace rooms, ultimately dropping fairy-like into the lake below. The immense gardens are riotous with color: roses, jasmine, lilies, snapdragons, pansies, lavender, poppies. An emerald encirclement is formed by the symmetrical rows of chinars, cypresses, cherry trees, and beyond them tower the white austerities of the Himalayas. So-called Kashmir grapes are considered a rare delicacy in Calcutta. Rajendra, who had been talking about the grape feast awaiting us in Kashmir, was disappointed to find no large vineyards. Now and then I chaffed him over his baseless anticipation. I have become so gorged with grapes I can't walk, I would say. The invisible grapes are brewing within me. Later, we heard that sweet grapes grew abundantly in Kabul, west of Kashmir. We consoled ourselves with ice cream made of rabi, heavy condensed milk and flavored with whole pistachio nuts. We took several trips in shikaras, small boats shaded with red embroidered canopies, coursing along the intricate channels of Dal Lake, a network of canals like a watery spider web. Here the numerous floating gardens, crudely improvised with logs and earth, strike one with amazement. So incongruous is the sight of vegetables and melons growing in the midst of vast waters. Occasionally one sees a peasant, disdaining to be rooted to the soil, towing his square plot of land to a new location in the many-fingered lake. In this storied vale one finds an epitome of all the earth's beauties. The Lady of Kashmir is mountain-crowned, lake-garlanded, and flower-shod. In later years, after I had toured many countries, I understood why Kashmir is often called the world's most scenic spot. It possesses some of the charms of the Swiss Alps and Loch Lomond in Scotland, and of the exquisite English lakes. An American traveler in Kashmir finds much to remind him of the rugged grandeur of Alaska and of Pikes Peak near Denver. As entries in a scenic beauty contest, I offered for first prize either the gorgeous view of Xochimilco in Mexico, where skies, mountains, and poplars are reflected amid playful fish in myriad lanes of water, or the lakes of Kashmir, guarded like beautiful maidens by the stern surveillance of the Himalayas. These two places stand out in my memory as the loveliest spots on earth. Yet I was awed also when I beheld the wonders of Yellowstone National Park and of the Grand Canyon of Colorado and of Alaska. Yellowstone is perhaps the only region on earth where one may see numerous geysers erupting high in the air with almost clock-like regularity. In this volcanic area, nature has left a specimen of an earlier creation. Hot sulphurous springs, opal and sapphire-colored pools, violent geysers, and freely roaming bears, wolves, bison, and other wild creatures. Motoring along the roads of Wyoming to the Devil's Paint Pot of bubbling hot mud, observing the gurgling springs, spouting geysers, and vaporous fountains, I was disposed to say that Yellowstone deserves a special prize for uniqueness. At Yosemite Park in California, the ancient majestic sequoias, stretching huge columns far into the sky, are green natural cathedrals, designed with divine skill. Though there are wonderful falls in the Orient, none match the torrential beauty of Niagara in New York on the Canadian border. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky and Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico are strange fairylands. Long stalactites hanging from cave ceilings and mirrored in underground waters presents a glimpse of other worlds as fancied by man. In Kashmir, a large number of people, world famed for their beauty, are as white as Europeans and have similar features and bone structure. Many are blue-eyed and blonde-haired. Dressed in Western clothes, they look like Americans. The coldness of the Himalaya affords the Kashmiris relief from the sultry sun and preserves their light complexions. As one travels south to the tropical latitudes of India, he finds progressively that people are darker and darker. After spending happy weeks in Kashmir, I was forced to make the preparations to return to Bengal for the fall term of Serampore College. Siri Yutaswar, Kaney, and Audi were to remain in Seringa a little longer. Shortly before I departed, Master hinted that his body would be subject to suffering in Kashmir. Sir, you look a picture of health, I protested. There is a chance that I may even leave this earth. Guruji, I fell at his feet with an imploring gesture. Please promise that you won't leave your body now. I am utterly unprepared to carry on without you. Sir Yutaswar was silent. He smiled at me so compassionately that I felt reassured. Reluctantly, I left him. Master, dangerously ill. This telegram came from Audi, reached me shortly after my return to Serampore. Sir, Sir, I wired my guru frantically. I ask for your promise not to leave me. Please keep your body, otherwise I also shall die. Be it as you wish. This was Master's reply from Kashmir. A letter from Audi arrived in a few days informing me that Master had recovered. On his return to Sriramapur during the next fortnight, I was grieved to find my Guru's body reduced to half its usual weight. Okay, we're in the middle of page 235. I'm going to stop for today. Talk to you later. Bye.